welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. I'll be your astrologer today. Happy Thursday, everybody. I hope it's going well. We are going to chat today about Venus entering into the sign of Scorpio. I'm titling this video Scorpion Kiss. If you guys like my content and you want to see more of it, make sure you click the bell button below. That way you are alerted as to when we have new videos coming out on the channel. Give me a thumbs up if you like this content and leave me a comment. Let me know, are you somebody who natally has Venus in Scorpio, and are you excited for this transit? How is it aspecting your chart? I'd love to hear. Well, we've got a Venus ingress, guys. It is a powerful one, and this is going to be a really interesting video because we're going to first start by talking about what Venus in Scorpio might mean, how it manifests out in the world, how it might impact us, and we're also going to take a look at Venus's trek. Now, believe it or not, we can't really look at this transit without really looking at what takes place over the beginning of December. So you guys are going to be experiencing Venus going into Scorpio on the 4th, but we see Venus in the conjunction to the South Node just recently. That happened this last month, and then we have Venus coming into a square with Pluto. So Venus's exit out of the sign of Libra, one of its home ruling signs, is quite dramatic. South Node dealing with the past, Pluto square dealing with some intensity and some need to make changes in love and relationships in the long term. So who is this going to affect the most? Well, obviously those of you guys who are ruled by Venus. So if you are a Taurus or a Libra rising, you will feel this ingress more so strongly. But my Scorpios as well, Sun, Moon, and Rising, although this transit can be very positive for you. Or if you have a natal Venus in Scorpio, you will be experiencing a Venus return. Now, Venus will be entering into Scorpio on December 4th, and it will be moving through the sign until the 29th of December, 2023. And Scorpio is the 8th sign of the zodiac. This is the zodiac sign that is ruled both by Mars as well as Pluto, a fixed water sign, definitely a little spicy, very passionate. And I want to talk to you guys first about Venus in Scorpio. So when Venus transits the sign of Scorpio, we're going to see themes associated with Scorpio relating to love and money. Depth, passion, transformation. These are all keywords when we think of the sign of Scorpio. And while Venus moves through this particular sign, it's got a really interesting flavor because not only is it moving through Scorpio, which is about change and letting go, but it is also the ruler of the South Node. So this is going to be really interesting to see the play off of some of the changes that have been happening in Libra, and now it's kind of going through this transformational period in Scorpio. I see Scorpio as like going to the underworld and coming back. So we're definitely going to be dealing with some more intense themes in regards to relationships, sex, resources, and also healing, because Scorpio is a sign that deals with transmuting pain and being able to regenerate in some way. So definitely when I think of Venus in Scorpio in transit, I think about Scorpio being a sign that's known for its intensity and its emotional depth. So when Venus transits through Scorpio, emotions and relationships may become more profound or complex. There's a desire for deep connection and also a real aversion to being superficial that can lead to much more passionate and a much more intense approach to love and romance. So this is where we kind of trade peace for truth or honesty, where Libra is more focused on superficial things in relationships. Scorpio wants to get down to the nitty gritty, and it really wants to, see somebody's like soul. There is this merger that happens in Scorpio as well because it's about blending two energies into one. Now, I definitely notice more of like a magnetic attraction, and if you have any personal planets in Scorpio, you may notice this during this transit. So if you're a Scorpio rising, sun, or moon, you may tap into this energy a little bit more intensely. Obviously, Scorpio is ruled both by Mars, but also by Pluto, and this is the planet of transformation and power. So when you mix Venus and Scorpio with this energy of like Plutonian energy, there's a magnetic quality that can kind of come about out in the world and also in your personal life, which can be very alluring and very captivating. So during this transit, there may be an increased attraction. You may feel like there is a sense of certain individuals finding themselves drawn to deeper or more meaningful connections. But those of you guys who have Scorpio placements, I think are going to feel this a little bit more strongly. This can also bring about heightened sensuality because Venus is associated with sensual pleasure, and Scorpio adds to the element of intensity with these experiences. There's an increased desire for intimacy, and physical attraction is definitely higher. We might notice that there's just more physical connection in relationships, and they may become, more significant or more connected during this transit. Emotional transformations also happen because Venus is about what we're opening up to, and it is a feminine energy. So as it moves to the sign of Scorpio, it's about transformation and rebirth. So Venus in Scorpio might bring about changes in the way individuals will relate to each other emotionally. Deep emotional insights and the willingness to confront hidden or intense feelings can lead to personal growth in relationships. Because Scorpio is the 8th house and it has associations with what's hidden, likely Venus going in there wants to heal something. So it wants to tend to a fear or where there's been some issues with not feeling supported, or where there's been abandonment, or there has been like hurt in love. Oftentimes Venus in Scorpio or Venus-Pluto contact, maybe Venus in the 8th house, is sometimes fearful, and not because they don't want connection, but because they fear vulnerability and being seen. So while we go through this transit, we all have the opportunity to do a little bit of healing. Now, financial depth comes up because Venus is a financial sign, and during this transit through Scorpio, there may be much more of a focus on joint finances, shared resources, and investments. And it's a time when individuals might be more inclined to explore the deeper aspects of financial partnerships. Now, whether that's between you and your partner, or you and your clients, maybe you and your employer, you're definitely going to see lots of changes going on with insurance premiums. I know I talked about that previously, but that seems to be part of it because Scorpio does deal with insurance and other people's money. The oppositions to Jupiter and Uranus are going to probably bring about some shocks and surprises about interest rates, insurance rates, taxes, extra fees and things that are coming up. And it's going to really push us to really reevaluate who we are merging with financially, who we're banking with, whether or not we're on the same page with our romantic partners or our family members about expenses and money that we're spending. And I do think it's also going to be getting people to think about, whether or not they're feeling valued, because Venus is in its fall. So there can be a sense of being like, okay, I give to this one, area of my life, or to this business, or to this relationship. And we can become more sensitive and aware of where we may not be feeling like we get what we need in exchange. Now, definitely expect secrets and mysteries, okay? Because Scorpio is associated with secrets. And Venus in Scorpio is about bringing about a desire to uncover hidden aspects in relationships. So there may be a tendency to delve beneath the surface to understand the underlying dynamics of love and connections. Now, this can be good if it's encouraging us to go deeper in relationships and focus on changing or transforming the things that keep us from love. But it can also be a little tricky because we can definitely see a tendency to kind of spy or snoop. We can see the darker side of relationships where there is, jealousy and anger and resentment and possessiveness also in relationships that can come up as well. Now, obviously, we can't talk Scorpio without talking about power dynamics because Scorpio is a sign that is associated with power dynamics. And during this transit, we might experience a heightened awareness of power struggles in relationships. And I think it's giving us an opportunity to explore and address these issues related to control and balance. Now, whether this is in the sense of, who's kind of playing what role in a relationship, or who's investing more, or what we're getting out of a relationship, that might come up. But I also think it's going to be about personal values. And especially when you start to see the oppositions to placements in Taurus, we may start to see where relationships are being tested or financial situations are being tested if we are not being mindful and, practicing a little bit more of a sense of being grounded and practical, and taking our time when it comes to money or relationships. So you guys will definitely see that. Now, some themes for me, just kind of like marinating on this a little bit. Obviously, since Venus entered into, Leo, we have experienced the South Node in the sign of Libra. So right off the bat, Venus was getting ready to go into a sign in which it would retrograde. That was earlier this summer. So we had some challenges there. Shortly after that, coming into the fall, we had Venus that was moving through Virgo, and we saw a number of oppositions to Saturn and Neptune, where we were starting to realize that love meant that we had to care for something or someone. Obviously, 2023, the summer of 2023, we've seen a lot of breakups and separations with both of these transits. Finally leading to Venus in Libra, where Venus came into its home sign, but it is now connecting with the South Node and squaring Pluto. So I could see like this being the finale in what has been several months of a lot of real tests and relationships. And I feel like I said, we can't really look at the Venus, moving through Scorpio without looking at the Venus square Pluto. I think about how Venus's connection to the South Node is really kind of suggesting that now that we've gone through the cleaning out phase or the becoming aware of the problems or where there's been imbalances for us in the Libra area of our chart, now this is about, going through the change and the transformation. Where Leo is meeting other people and falling in love, Libra is about commitment and partnership. Scorpio is about the real merger. So if you're on the other side of the spectrum and you've recently met somebody, or maybe you have started dating and now you're kind of connecting, getting to know someone, Venus in Scorpio season can be about going deeper in that real merger and really kind of like bearing your soul to another person and talking about all of the things that you're afraid of. Libra, I love Libra, but it's about the act of partnership. It's not the merger. The real merger after the marriage is Scorpio, because you end up merging your finances. You end up, merging and taking on each other's debt. There is a sense of becoming aware of each other's fears and phobias and secrets and triggers. So Venus going through this part of the sky is definitely a very intense placement. And I feel like this can be either where we are recovering from what's been a difficult summer in love or a difficult summer financially. Or this can be about where we are looking at what's happened and we're focusing on being able to kind of hit refresh and have like a reemergence in certain relationships where we're learning to kind of, heal the wounds, so to say. Now, Venus is the dispositor of Jupiter and Uranus. So because Venus rules Taurus, whatever's going on with Venus is a reflection of Jupiter and Uranus. So keep that in the back of your mind, especially considering the fact that we are going to see at the end of the month, right around the time that Venus is actually leaving Scorpio, Jupiter is going to go direct. So that's going to say, basically there is some sense of awareness now about growth or our financial situation. We will also see Venus make an opposition to Jupiter and Uranus. So we're going to be feeling like we're being pulled in two different directions. And I think that Venus being the dispositor of Uranus with the Venus-Uranus opposition, that's what I'm really curious to see manifests. If now that, we're getting to the tail end of these Venus transits, now we're seeing the physical, the financial repercussions of some of the changes that we've been experiencing in relationships. The South Node connection is also a big one for me, because it's picking up on what changed in Libra, but also I think about how, Venus is connected to wanting to open us up to love. But in Scorpio, it might be showing us like what's not working in relationships. Venus in Scorpio is about a darker side of love. And it can also be about all of the things that we think love is, but it may not actually be love. It might be something that's toxic. Because Scorpio is connected to poisons and it has connections to Pluto, Venus can be aware that sometimes the poison can be the remedy. So there can be some really darker, heavier things that come up for us in financial situations in our lives that encourage us to kind of look at it in the face and go like, okay, is this actually healthy for me? Is this what love is supposed to be? And, you know, I mean, it really depends on where you are in the spectrum with this transit. I feel like it's going to have a different flavor because the South Node is in Libra. So, you know, maybe some of us are kind of coming out of relationships or situations where we've been too indecisive or too dependent. Or too people pleasing. And so Venus going through Scorpio can represent that change or that transformation in relationships to other people as we're becoming aware of what's not healthy in love. I always like connect, you know, this also to like things that are sweet or things that are very tempting, but may not necessarily be good for us. So whether it's like your favorite sugary or processed snack, or you know, like that favorite toxic person that you want to go back to, but you know, you got to let go of. That could also be something that you could be dealing with during this transit as well. Obviously, you know, rebirth is one of the big like keywords for me when I think about Scorpio, and opportunities to have rebirths after experiencing some kind of crisis. So Scorpio deals with death, it deals with regeneration, it deals with birth, it deals with pregnancy, grief, loss, letting go. So there are definitely some heavy topics that we will cover, you know, while we're going through Venus and Scorpio. And the positive in all of this is that unlike Scorpio season, where we saw the Sun and Mars make all these oppositions to planets in Taurus, now it's just Venus, and Venus is, you know, one of the benefic planets. So even if she's in a sign where she doesn't function as well, she still wants to bring good things. And so she may bring some challenges in relationships, but for good reason. So try to keep that in the back of your mind, that everything is about change. For most of the transit, you know, we're going to see sextiles to Capricorn. So the more that we're willing to make changes, the more that we feel in control and better prepared for long-term goals or professional goals. We're going to see some trines to Pisces, which is going to represent releasing or letting something go, healing something, being more tapped in spiritually, or maybe just feeling as if we are reminiscing on something and then kind of setting it free. Definitely with water trines between Scorpio and Pisces, I do see a lot of like endings, and these are what we consider terminal houses: Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. So there might be a sense of being like, I really love this thing, but I've outgrown it. Or, you know, I really love this, but it's not working for me anymore. So there can be a lot of grace that can come from trines, I think, to Pisces throughout this transit that can really allow us to come to terms with being okay in releasing something, which is generally not easy for Venus in Scorpio, or if you have a Venus in the 8th house or a Venus-Pluto contact. There is this sense of, you know, undying love and devotion, and like the unwillingness to kind of let something go. And I think of Venus in Scorpio as, you know, when we say till death do us part, that is very Venus in Scorpio. So they're extremely devoted. And they know that once they kind of sink themselves into a relationship and like let go, they give it their all. They're all in. And that's why there is some reluctance sometimes to opening up with relationships. And, you know, the challenging side of Venus in this sign is that we can be looking for all of the reasons or all of the things why we can't trust love and why love might not be safe. There can sometimes be this fear or this paranoia that can come up with Venus in Scorpio. And I've seen it. I've seen clients and I've seen friends and family who have some of these contacts where something sweet might come into their life, or a relationship might come into their life, and there is this sense of questioning. What do they want? You know, like, what do they see in me? Or like, what's the catch? And I mean, I got a Scorpio stellium, so I totally get it. But there can be this sense of being afraid to let their guard down. And so what's going to be really beneficial throughout this transit is like really learning that intimacy only happens when you're willing to be vulnerable. Trust is a really important topic with Venus in Scorpio. For some of us, we're going to learn to trust again. And for others, we're going to see that there's going to be some things that are going to throw us for a loop and have us questioning what we should or should not be trusting or investing our time or energy into. Obviously, dealing with the darker side of love, without fail, when I see Venus go through Scorpio or some Venus-Pluto aspects, we definitely see lots of things being uncovered that can be darker, that can be heavier topics. Scorpio is a sign that deals with crime. We also see themes revolving around secrets and like financial crimes that kind of come up. Things revolving around sometimes like gangs and the mafia and like investments and dealings. Sometimes with, money transactions that are not kosher. Sometimes we see more themes coming up revolving around things that are of a sexual nature or taboo. And we can also see something linked in between all of these. Sometimes it's a really significant event involving a woman who's exposing something or who gets kind of tangled up in, some kind of like major storyline involving anger, frustration, jealousy, that kind of stuff. So that can definitely come up. I do think that Venus going through Scorpio is going to be very telling as it starts to come into an opposition with Jupiter and Uranus, where there can be a sense of exposing where people are investing money, because they know that it's going to make money in the long run, but it could be money coming from Scorpio things like war or death, or money that can be coming from mining, or where there could be conflict over mining. So yeah, we'll see some of that stuff come up through this transit. But in your life, you want to watch for, where resentment, anger, jealousy, frustration, where people are getting conditional in love, where people are making demands, where there is a sense of people not being so team oriented. And you're going to see it right at the very beginning of the transit, because Venus will square Pluto. So we're going to see some of these ultimatums in love. We're going to see some of these situations where, there can be some people who are becoming hyperfixated or obsessive or controlling in relationships. And then Venus goes into Scorpio and it's like, no, this isn't working. So you'll see at the beginning of the transit, at the end of the transit, there are aspects first to Saturn and then to Neptune. So to me, it kind of feels like, the changes that we're making are about having better boundaries, having more awareness, learning to kind of like say no more, or this ends here. And then at the end of the transit, practicing compassion and empathy as we start to see Venus trine Neptune and sextile Pluto. Oftentimes when we see trines involving Venus, we can bring in relationships, we can bring in money, but remember that Venus is in her fall. So I don't think it's necessarily going to be as physical or abundant as it might be in some other trines. This is more a sense of learning to be more sensitive and emotional and compassionate, and becoming aware that sometimes the best thing you can do, or the best way to show love, is to let something go, to let something be. Now, watch for increased intuition, because I do feel like Venus is about what we are receptive to, and it can talk about social themes. It can also talk about, just our connection to the goddess. And so when Venus goes into Scorpio, this is almost like going into, Hades' den. We're going to see lots of themes involving dark goddesses. So I think of like Kali, and I think of like Hecate, and I think of Persephone, all of these goddesses that have this mythology and this storyline of going to hell and back and what they learn about that, and the anger and the frustration and the vengeance. But also Venus has connections with Taurus, which is about life, and it's about growth, and it's about resources. And also Libra, which is about partnership. So a lot of these dark goddess storylines talk a lot about how there is some lesson in what was taken from them, or how a relationship or a partnership kind of did them dirty. And there was some issues with, with trust and people who felt betrayed. Unfortunately, there's also darker themes connected to Venus and Scorpio. We do see more themes revolving around attacks on women, or, where women are being hurt or mistreated, that can come up. And I think that Venus is going to be exposing some of this stuff and saying basically, relationships are not always what meets the eye. There can be things going on behind the scenes that people aren't really aware of, or people changing relationships or leaving relationships or letting relationships go and willing to risk it all and make big changes in regards to relationships, even at the cost of some big financial challenges. So I'll remind you guys, not everything is going to be what it seems. You're going to definitely see some people who are going to be saying, I'm not working for this company anymore. And then there's going to be some like financial stuff that's going to come out. You're going to see some people who are going to be like, I'm leaving the relationship, but they may not say why. Then come to find out, you're going to hear people talking about, well, partners were making moves financially, not telling them what was going on and keeping secrets. So stuff that is kind of being concealed and hidden, both because it's Scorpio, but also the aspects that we're going to be seeing to Neptune as well. Now, I think Venus in its fall is an important thing to mention here. And we've only really seen Venus in one sign where she can really get stuff done. And that's been recently in Libra. So, out the gate, the South Node in Libra has not been easy because we've seen a number of obstacles that Venus has had to be going through. So she's tired, right? Venus is tired. Ask any Venus ruled person, they'll tell you that. But I think about how, Venus moving into a sign where she's in her fall, basically she's in the opposite sign of where she's comfortable in Taurus. We like to see Venus in Taurus. We like to see Venus in Libra. We like to see Venus in Pisces. Not that there's anything wrong with the other placements. It's just this is where Venus is going to be able to kind of really show what she's got. So because Venus is associated with love, beauty, harmony, and social connections, when Venus moves into her fall, it means that we may have challenges in Venus-related things. It suddenly doesn't become the best time to go and get a new haircut or a new style or, change your wardrobe or make some big changes to your home, right? Because Venus is in a sign that's more associated with conflict, passion, war, death. Unless you have a natal Venus in Scorpio and you're having your Venus return, it could be a little different. So this is where it pays to know your chart. But really, the best of the cosmetic and kind of aesthetic stuff is pretty much done while Venus has been in Libra. So while we see Venus go through the sign, we're going to be seeing that there's going to be lots of emotional and psychological triggers that are going to be coming up. We're exploring the shadow side of relationships and emotions. So we may feel more intense, more secretive, maybe we're focused on uncovering things. And this is challenging for Venus because Venus wants to socialize. She wants to have intimacy. She wants to be beautiful and social and connect with people. When she's going through Scorpio, she can sometimes be a little paranoid, or there can be a sense of her questioning, what's going on in a relationship and having some really dramatic or intense exchanges. Now, sometimes, like I said, this is for transformational reasons. It can come with a change in power dynamics. And, usually that's when Venus is feeling uncomfortable that she kind of starts to act out. So be mindful, just because Venus is moving through its fall, it doesn't necessarily mean that she's entirely weak or ineffective. It just means that the way she's expressing her energy is very different. I also feel like this is going to give us all the opportunity to, navigate potential challenges associated with the Scorpio area of our life and kind of say, okay, where am I willing to kind of be aware of, where maybe I'm not letting love in, or where I'm not letting abundance in, or where I'm not seeing the beauty in this situation. And it can allow us to really have a big transformation in that area of our chart. But wherever it started, okay, or wherever it's changing, it actually started in Libra. So you want to reflect on what's been going on for the last month and how that is being reflected in the Scorpio area of your chart. So let's take a look at the transits of Venus, and we're going to take a look at Venus's trek through the sign all the way through for this next month, and I'm going to touch on the dates that I feel like are the most important for you. Obviously, it got to start on the 3rd with Venus in Libra, so it's at 28 degrees, and it's coming into a square with Pluto. So if we look at what's happened here recently, Venus conjuncts the South Node here on November 29th. She then comes into a square with Pluto on December 3rd. and then she enters into Scorpio on the 4th. So think about what's basically been happening the end of November into the beginning of December. What's changing, what's clearing out, what's wrapping up. Okay, great. We're reflecting on that. And I think Venus in Scorpio is basically saying, if we want love, if we want abundance, if we want more reassurance, we've got to let love in. Now, on the 4th is when Venus makes this shift. The way that I see it is this. Like I said, unless you're a Scorpio sun, moon, or rising, this is generally a little bit more challenging for everybody else. So, you know, if you can make some of your major investments, major financial commitments, relationship conversations, if you can do the money stuff that you need to do, any Venus related things, I recommend doing it before Venus changes signs. Although Venus will come into some really nice aspects right when she moves into Scorpio. So on the 5th, she is going to form a trine with Saturn, which is a really great aspect. Although I don't really see it as manifesting as being like, okay, we've got the money. I think it's manifesting as, okay, you know, I have really figured out what I value or what I'm committing to, and now I'm ready to make an emotional shift, and now I'm ready to make a commitment. Venus will trine Saturn in Pisces at 1 degree. So when we see Venus and Saturn trine, this is about emotional depth from Venus in Scorpio and stability with Saturn in Pisces. Both planets are direct also, so they're working out in the world, they're making some kind of connection or commitment. You know, because Venus is intense here and Saturn is also about stabilizing, we're able to kind of take both of these and blend them together and see that there's an opportunity on this date for emotional maturity and stability in relationships, where the intense emotions of Scorpio can be grounded and managed efficiently. But I feel like it's about all of the things that don't need to be said, right? Like I think about just like how kind of hectic and chaotic maybe things have been in recent months in relationships and finances. And maybe this is where we start to kind of feel like, okay, things are kind of stabilizing and settling out now. I also feel like it's possible that this can be about like in certain relationships, like peace and, you know, tranquility being a good thing, like not needing to rock the boat. Like now we're finally kind of like letting some things settle down. So not really feeling like you need to do anything other than notice where things feel comfortable or where things feel like they're solid. And like you may not necessarily need words because these are both very psychic signs. Anyway, Venus trine Saturn. This can be when people commit to each other. This can be when people decide they want to work together. This can be when big decisions are made about financial moves. And there is some sense of stabilizing something. But remember, Venus is connected to the South Node. So it's like, okay, this ended. Now how are we adjusting? Commitment and responsibility in relationships is a huge theme here. I think the context of a trine with Venus in Scorpio may be about a sense of commitment and responsibility to something else. And the potential for long-term enduring connections that are being built on solid foundation of trust and mutual understanding. So it's like, now that you've gone through the change, how are you feeling? You know, do you feel confident moving forward into the future? Are you feeling a little bit more secure? This also really kind of tempers the intensity, I think, Saturn does, of Venus in Scorpio. Because, you know, Venus in Scorpio is very passionate and very intense, sometimes bordering on being a little dramatic. So when Saturn in Pisces comes into this trine, it's about being practical and grounded. So when you see these two combined, it's about balancing between the emotional intensity of Scorpio and the practical considerations of Saturn, likely resulting in a much more stable and enduring romantic connection. So there is a sense of being like, okay, this thing happened, but let's not be too dramatic about it. What can we do to be able to kind of better stabilize the situation? Or through some of the conflict or the crisis that's been brewing at the end of November, we actually start to see what relationships are really made of, and it gives us the opportunity to build stronger in terms of our connection to other people. So you have to look at where Venus is in Scorpio and where Saturn is in Pisces. These two are kind of harmonizing, and I feel like the more you're committed to doing your Saturn work, the more that it can kind of hold space for some of the changes that Venus is going through. Now, artistic expression and structure is a really big thing here because Venus represents art and also expression, and Saturn can facilitate the manifestation of artistic endeavors with a structured and disciplined approach. So this aspect may support more creative projects and have a lasting impact and a grounded sense of purpose. I love this. I feel like if it's like, you know, Venus saying, okay, I totally want to change and transform, you know, something. I want to totally change, you know, the house. Saturn is going to say, well, you can do something that's going to be more external, which is just like throwing on an extra coat of paint and it might look better, but I don't think you're going to be totally thrilled with it. But if we come in and we knock a wall down and we work with the house structurally and we create more of the flow that you're looking for, you're going to get a lot more through, you know, taking that kind of approach, which might require you to go to the foundation or to the root of the problem. It might require you to take more time or to take a much more kind of practical approach, a longer term approach to making the change or the transformation that you want. So this is positive. I just think once again, it's going to be like, I don't like this thing. This isn't feeling so good. Okay, great. What are we going to do to change it? And so I think it's about also having a sense of maturity in relationships and in financial situations and being like, do you know, am I focusing on the short-term goal or the long-term goal? Are you going to get so worked up about something that's not really hitting the spot right now or something that's not working right now that you're going to bail on the relationship or bail on the investment or bail on the commitment? And where maturity sometimes is about, you know, sticking through the challenges in good times and also in bad, that there's lessons in that. But also like the foundation for creative stuff. So it's like the very beginning process of being like, okay, you know what? I want to make a big change to a creative business, or I want to learn how to sculpt, or I want to learn how to paint. Saturn is saying, well, in order to do that, you need to have some kind of groundedness in a sense of your vision. You know, what is your vision? What is it that you're wanting to learn how to do? How can you learn the, you know, the steps or the structure to be able to kind of bring your idea to life? So for those of you guys who are wanting to move forward, not just with relationships or finances, but also with some kind of creative or spiritual pursuit, this can be a wonderful time to do that. It's about being really grounded, I think, in a sense of purpose. And then we have the opportunity to build emotional resilience. Saturn's influence can bring a sense of discipline and resilience. In the context of Scorpio's emotional intensity, this trine might help individuals build emotional resilience and the ability to navigate challenges in relationships with maturity and strength. I love it. I feel like, to me, this is saying, yeah, you know, things aren't always pretty in relationships, but you learn in some of those situations to endure and you become stronger. Venus in Scorpio and Venus in Aries, it always reminds me of, you know, all is fair in love and war. That sometimes, you know, in these two situations, people don't always play fair. Sometimes there's some dirty stuff that kind of gets kicked up and we have to decide whether or not we're going to match somebody with that energy eye for eye. And I think Venus trine Saturn is about learning to take a higher road approach. After all, you know, Pisces is a Jupiterian sign, so it's about being like, I'm not going to lower myself to that. You know, I'm not going to lower my vibration. I'm not going to match somebody eye for eye, because that's not really what love is about. And that if you really love somebody, then or something, you wouldn't behave in that manner. So we're learning to practice restriction and not becoming too wildly reactionary or I would almost say like retaliating in relationships. You know, sometimes Venus in Scorpio can do that unintentionally because it's feeling like it's not safe. So it will start doing things that's causing some problems in terms of relationships. So I'm looking forward to the positive aspects right off the bat with that Venus trine Saturn. I really feel like it's helping all of us really kind of touch on what we're willing to let go of and what we're walking away from and what we're changing, and really getting in touch with the emotions necessary to stay committed to this change. Now, on the 9th, we're going to see Venus come into an opposition with Jupiter. And you're definitely going to feel it because the moon's going to be there too. So make a note of this day. So it's going to start in the morning on the 9th, and then that's going to perfect by the end of the day. Venus at 6 degrees will oppose Jupiter at 6 degrees. Okay, so this is on December 10th. All right, so Venus opposed Jupiter with the moon. Watch for sudden changes in love or money, spending or indulgence. December 9th and 10th, put the credit card away. Just trust me on this, okay? Not a day to be doing your Christmas shopping, your holiday shopping, overspending, overindulging, overeating, just over the top in regards to really feeling the crunch financially or emotionally. Now, with Venus in opposition to Jupiter, you know, some people might say, well, that's a good thing, right? Like Venus can be about, you know, all the sweetness in life, and Jupiter can be about bringing that through another person. Can we see generosity with this aspect? Yes. But keep in mind, Venus is in its fall and Jupiter's retrograde. So it's not really working in our favor. I think this is really showing us the tension between intensity and stability, because Taurus is slow and comfortable and it doesn't want to rock the boat. And Scorpio doesn't have a problem doing that, and it gets really intense and really passionate. And these are both financial signs. So there can be this tension between, you know, what we have and what other people have, or what we want and what we're afraid we're not going to get. But it also can be bringing up some really intense desires. And I think Jupiter seeks stability and abundance, and the opposition between the two is the need for depth and emotional intensity and the desire for stability and security. So there can be people reacting and responding very wildly when they feel like their sense of security is being rocked or being, you know, challenged in some way. The potential for excess comes up with this opposition. So Jupiter's influence can sometimes lead to excess, and the opposition to Venus in Scorpio, there may be a risk of overindulgence or extravagance in both emotional or material aspects of life. Caution is advised to avoid going to extremes. And so remember, you know, Venus rules Jupiter, extremes with travel and travel expenses and what travel or food or education costs. Uranus, which is going to be about energy and electricity. This is also going to be about groups of people. I mean, you're going to see like people be up in arms about, you know, potentially what new interest rates are going to be, or about, you know, how much money credit card, you know, companies are making. Credit card companies are killing it. I mean, right now. I mean, and that's not necessarily a good thing. I mean, you're looking at some credit cards that are 18, 19, 20, even more in terms of interest percentages. So where the second house is spending, you know, Scorpio is about money owed. And so you're going to hear out in the world, the topic is going to be about debt and, you know, the interest on debt, and whether that's how much debt is being accrued by, you know, consumers, or how much debt is getting set up by, at least here in the United States, we're going to hear about the debt ceiling, and whether or not we're coming up with solutions, or if we're just printing more money and then leading to more inflation, right? Jupiter and Uranus. But also I feel very strongly that it can be about overly indulging in things that aren't good for us. Venus in Scorpio can be about some things that are more taboo sexually. You know, Uranus and Jupiter in Taurus can be about food. It can be about material goods, possessions. And I think Venus in Scorpio is the length that people will go to pay people off, to conceal things, to hide things, about some of the dirty dealings that people are dealing with in terms of their private life. And I think we might hear some more about the banking involvement in some of these more recent horrific sex scandals that are going out in the world. Opportunity for growth and expansion always comes up through Jupiter oppositions. And so, you know, despite the tension, oppositions present opportunity for growth and integration. So Jupiter's expansive energy can help Venus in Scorpio broaden its perspective on relationships and values, encouraging personal and emotional growth. So there can be an opportunity to get out of the drama, out of the frantic, kind of obsessive, fixated kind of tendencies of Venus in Scorpio if we're doing our Taurus things. Grounding our energy, right? Eating well, making changes in regards to our values, working on our self-esteem, spending time in nature, connecting with what, feels good, what is natural. Naturally, I think there's going to be more talk probably about, like sex, sexuality, sexual nature. And there can also be, on the flip side, people being a little bit more practical and honest about their needs intimately with partners and what they're preferring. Because Taurus can talk more about your own personal pleasure versus Scorpio, where other people come in. So there can be lots of discussion about whether or not people are getting their needs met, and if they're not getting their needs met, then obviously the sex industry and how that may potentially be booming. And I think Jupiter and Uranus is going to be talking about a global look at personal pleasure, personal preferences, and definitely where like tech is kind of coming into play when it comes to sex and sexuality. Sex workers and sex work is also a huge theme, especially with Venus and Scorpio. I feel like with Venus in opposition to Jupiter and then to Uranus, we're going to see some people who may be turning to some of this work to be able to feel like financially, they're able to get their needs met. All right, so then we're going to see on the 11th, Venus will sextile Mercury in Capricorn. This is like a quick moving sextile, but nevertheless, we've got Venus who's really focusing on changing something about resources in harmony with Mercury, which will be going retrograde at 8 degrees. So it's interesting because, Mercury going retrograde or getting ready to station around the time of the new moon is basically saying some information is being received, they're picking something up. I feel like this is about, government structures and, leaders and people in position of power or high-ranking authority out in the world getting wind of just how much is about to be coming up in terms of consumer spending and seeing that slowdown effect. Even in the holidays, I think we're going to see the slowdown effect of just people feeling like they don't have the capabilities or the wherewithal to spend the way that they've been spending in recent years. So when consumer spending is slowing down, that's a huge economic signal that, there is a wave coming of some real potential challenges. So I feel like the Mercury retrograde might be spinning it. I feel like this is also about reflecting on the money that is actually owed. And I feel like when Venus starts opposing Jupiter and Uranus, we're going to see some real big changes in regards to financial systems. All right, so this does allow us to communicate more sweetly and talk about what our goals are and come up with a plan. So I think of like Venus in Scorpio and Mercury in Capricorn as being like, okay, how can we come up with a practical solution to find a way to be able to get ahead, to pay things off? I think the end of the year is going to be a lot of big businesses really looking at their balance sheets, trying to figure out how they can cut corners, what they're trimming, what they're getting rid of, how they're able to get rid of extra costs so that way they can stay ahead. And unfortunately, the sextiles to planets in Scorpio might represent cutting back on benefits, making changes to extras, or, if you're working for a company that's giving you all kinds of extra goodies, like, lots of paid time off, or if you're getting like lunches catered and things like that, this Mercury retrograde is going to be like trimming the excess fat any which way it can. After all, Venus is about indulgences. So I think a lot of people are going to be really surprised to see how much will be changing in that department. And I think other people are going to be realizing that they just don't have the funds necessary. And they're going to be kind of looking at ulterior options for being able to have access to money. So check cashing and, personal loans and some of these like short-term loans places and stuff, just the interest rates are just going to be, they're going to be absolutely insane. So just be mindful of that. Really be mindful of like budgets going into the end of the year. Now, then we have on the 17th, Venus will in conjunct Chiron in Aries. And this is going to be bringing up themes revolving around where we're having maybe a feeling of lack or we're feeling insufficient. We're feeling vulnerable or, on our own, or, having some issues in terms of love and relationships where we can be feeling like we're being singled out because we're not getting what we need and we're feeling like we're not feeling the love. At 15 degrees, when the inconjunct is made, it can be about us being a little bit more defensive or shut off because we're feeling like we don't want to be vulnerable or we don't want to share something with somebody, and that we're fearful of speaking up or talking about something or saying how we're really feeling, and that us being defensive almost puts us in a situation where we're actually alienating ourselves a little bit more. And then on the 20th, then you're going to see Venus come into the opposition with Uranus retrograde. All right, so this is going to be at 19 degrees. It'll start in the evening and it's going to go overnight really into the 21st, so the 20th and the 21st. Venus opposes Uranus retrograde, okay, at a 19. This is about relationship squabbles. This is about relational issues, changes in values with other people, and challenges that come up in relationships or in unions because of financial conflict. Now, when we see Venus in opposition to Uranus, it does bring about sudden or unexpected changes in values, especially relating to relationships and resources. There could be a need to reassess priorities and adapt to unexpected shifts in emotional and material realms. So like I said, Venus's connection to the South Node in Libra and Venus moving through a sign where she's feeling like she's not getting what she needs, the opposition to Uranus is like, I think a lot of people who are having big changes to their spending habits, big changes to relationships. And I've said to a lot of people that a lot of the Venus transits are going to be about looking at what we don't have and how that impacts relationships. Are we basing relationships off of what we're getting out of them? Are we basing relationships off of what somebody buys us, or whether or not, they are spoiling us or giving us like all of this extra indulgence? When you peel back all of the superficial layers, now that Venus is in Scorpio, it's no longer in Libra. Where do things lie in relationships? And does money actually buy happiness? Probably not. Venus in Scorpio will tell you no. They're more likely to stay for reasons that have nothing to do with money, maybe sexual reasons, but definitely not financial. And so I feel like this can be a time where there can be shocks and surprises in relationships. After all, Venus is the dispositor of both of these. So this can be a time where you're surprised because you find out that, your significant other, spent a lot of money on the credit card for something that you guys don't agree on. It can be a time where there's a rift with a friendship because Uranus rules friends, and it does lead to some breaks or patterns in relationships where you're considering separation, or there can be a lot of on and off or back and forth going on. And ultimately, I think this is about balancing, passion with independence. This is where you're going to see that, there is a highlighted sense of, intense passion and desire for deep connection. And there's also a deep feeling of needing independence and freedom. So finding a balance between these two seems to be like a challenge. And it does relate to relationships. I think, Mars being connected to Scorpio, and Mars and the Sun are in Sagittarius square Neptune. I think some people are going to be spending holidays apart from partners. They're going to be questioning, whether or not that person is wanting to make amends, or, if they're still connected, even if they're at a distance or if they're apart. I also feel like a lot of this can be about people doing things that they want for the holidays. I'm looking at Mars trine, the moon and the North Node. I think you're going to see some people who are going to go, we don't want to host for the holidays. We don't want to spend a bunch of money and have a bunch of food and do a bunch of expensive decorations and gifts. Why? We'd rather travel, or we would rather, go and do something and be more independent and focus on spending time in a way where, it might differ from other people. So there can be some really extreme reactions within relationships to, partners, family, friends, if you're opting to break free with tradition and do something different this holiday season. And some people might be like, what the heck? All right, so watch for that. That's definitely going to create some friction. I think it'll last a couple days also, because then we're going to see the moon come into contact with Uranus 2 days later and oppose Venus. So that's still kind of hanging around. And then we see on the 23rd, Venus will quincunx or in conjunct the North Node right here at a 22. Okay. So when that happens, there is a sense of feeling like, are the changes that I've gone through making me feel like this is what I wanted? Like, did I make the right choice? I could see a lot of people saying that. And whether this is in how they decided to spend time, if they, are regretting the fact that they didn't, call somebody and make plans, if they're questioning whether or not they should or shouldn't have gotten somebody like a gift, because Venus can be about that. But yeah, it's at a 22. So I feel like this is about looking at things being like, could I have or should I have done more? And that's going to be an interesting day to watch, because Moon conjunct Uranus will be happening. So everybody's already going to feel a little staticky, a little frantic. And then the oppositions to Venus, I think, is going to have a lot of people feeling like what they want, they can't have, or it's not obtainable, or it's out of reach. And so with Venus quincunx the North Node, there's a sense of some people feeling more so than usual this holiday season with these transits alone or isolated or on their own, or questioning, whether or not they want that. I could see a lot of people not responding well to having some big changes aesthetically or in terms of socializing this Christmas. This Christmas or this holiday season might feel very different for a lot of people looking at the Venus-Uranus opposition. And this stems from Venus being in its fall. If it was in a different sign, it might be different. Some of you guys might be surprised and wake up, Christmas Day and your partner bought you a brand new Mercedes, right? This can definitely be Venus-Uranus aspects, especially in financial signs. But I think we're going to find that more people are going to be shocked and surprised about what's not coming together, or who's not showing up, or the fact that there is rifts around the holidays, or that somebody didn't quite get what they wanted to get. And it kind of like really puts somebody else in a funk because they feel unappreciated. And then other people who are just kind of looking around being like, I don't have that exchange with other people, or I'm not spending it with family, or I don't have a partner. And they're kind of going like, okay, this feels uncomfortable. So like, what am I doing for me? And it really magnifies that North Node Chiron conjunction that's brewing in Aries, where we're more acutely aware of our own issues and things that kind of set us aside from other people and sometimes make us feel a little bit detached. The positive is, while Venus is getting assaulted with this moon transit, the Mars is trining the North Node. So there is this sense of being like, okay, I don't like this. What am I going to do about it? And so I would encourage everybody not to get too wrapped up in the trappings of a Hallmark holiday. With all respect to those of you guys who celebrate for religious reasons, when you really look at the holidays, and whether you're looking at Christmas or you're looking at Valentine's Day or looking at Easter, these are all holidays that have more or less become like bastardized versions of pagan holidays. You guys can go back. There's a lot of astrologers who do work looking at historical time periods, and a lot of people seem to agree that we don't really believe that Jesus was born in Capricorn season. A lot of us share the perspective that he was kind of born on the cusp of Aries and Pisces. And a lot of that does reflect with the time period of which he was born and the alignments, and also just like his personality. So if you go back and you do your history and you look at what happened with the Roman calendar and how everything was thrown off and changed, and the new year starts in January versus the real new year, which starts at the beginning of Aries season, when we have the spring equinox here in the northern hemisphere. It's almost like the new year is trying to start in the middle of winter. And it, I believe, was meant to kind of throw a lot of us out of our natural rhythms of being connected with nature and with the cosmos. So with that being said, when you look at the holidays, I could see a lot of people getting into a funk about what they're not receiving or what they can't afford or what they're not giving, and creating a lot of disharmony in relationships that doesn't need to happen. When in reality, I feel like the North Node, Moon, Uranus is basically saying like, we are all collectively going in a different direction and really reevaluating what we find to be valuable. Many people are seeing wealth as a sense of freedom, or wealth as a sense of friends and connection with your community, or sharing a meal with people that's homemade versus feeling like you have to go out to a fancy kind of steakhouse. So you're going to see some people who are going to want to do something very different at the end of December to celebrate the holidays, and not everybody's going to be down with it, and some people are going to respond in a very nasty manner. A lot of it's also the mutable squares going on at the same time, where a lot of people aren't seeing eye to eye about how we're spending the holidays, or what we believe in, or what tradition or culture we're practicing, or where we're going. So it's just, yeah, the end of December is just a little bit of a hot mess. Now on the 24th, we are going to see, this is obviously Christmas Eve, Venus trine Neptune, which is a nice aspect. I'm a little on the fence though. So it's starting on Christmas Eve, but it's going to perfect on the 25th. But Venus at 24, trine Neptune at 24. So this is like a very Piscean energy. I could see like a lot of like drinking and reminiscing and looking at photos and, reminiscing on the good times, but also like who we've lost, loved ones we've lost, right? Scorpio is in the sign of death. So it's like, oh, I really miss my dad this Christmas, or I really wish my sister could be here, or I really wish I was able to celebrate with that person that I love and I lost. That's going to be coming through very strong this holiday season with this particular trine. I do feel like the positive is that this does give us the energy of having more romance, because Venus and Neptune are romantic signs, and when they're in harmony with one another, that definitely blends. So it could be some really great, food, wine, and like, sexy time with your favorite person. That could definitely happen. But Venus representing love, relationship, and aesthetics, and like Neptune is connected to idealism and dreams. So when they form this positive trine to one another, it can infuse relationships with a sense of romantic idealism. There's potential for deep emotional connection and desire for a soulful spiritual union. But it's private. It's almost like I could see like some people are going to be like, screw the holidays, I'm going on a cruise. Like literally, because this is in water signs. Or, choosing to spend it alone and really enjoying that time that you're spending alone, versus feeling like you need to kind of get lost in the hubbub of all of these mutable travel squares, which is going to be a nightmare. At the end of December, at some point, like the third week on, I feel like we're going to see issues with travel. There's going to be major storms. We're going to see flooding. There's going to be all kinds of stuff. And some people are going to be either stuck, or they're going to be isolated, or they're going to be with like one or two other people doing some completely different thing than what they planned on. But they're going to go, I kind of like this. Like, I like that we got snowed in and we didn't have to go to the party. Or like, I like that, my plane got delayed 3 hours because I met somebody at the airport. Like weird, strange, romantic things can happen. That's going to seem like it's out of some like Hallmark Christmas movie. But like for real, it's really good. And good music, good food, good wine definitely can happen with Venus trine Neptune. This will also open the door for more sensitivity and compassion because, Scorpio and Pisces are water signs. So it's really emphasizing emotional sensitivity. I think the trine between the two is really enhancing that and fostering a compassionate and empathetic approach in relationships. And we may feel more in tune to other people's needs and feelings. Watch for lots of opportunities for creative expression and inspiration. Because Neptune is associated with this, and the trine is going to be about a free flow of creativity and artistic pursuits. This makes an excellent time for expressing oneself through various forms of art, music, or creative outlets. I could definitely see some people showing up being like, I'm the gift, or I wrote you a song, or I painted you a painting as a form of gift, this holiday season. I think about videos and projectors. I don't know if you're like one of those families that like likes to do like all the videos and the pictures or whatever, or maybe like you're watching home movies and stuff. My family definitely like to get together and do that. We didn't always do it during Christmas time, but I can think of a number of times where we would pull out the projector on my mom's side, and my grandparents would pull out all the slides, and we'd look at like all the past like Christmases and holidays and stuff from when like my uncles were all like younger. And we get to see like everybody, in Christmas time, in the 60s with the tinsel all over the trees. And then I think about like, the photos from when I was a kid and the traditions that we had when I was younger, and definitely looking back at that. This trine reminds me of a lot of like reminiscing on stuff, and it might be a really cool time to like introduce younger generations to old traditions and like really kind of show like how you used to celebrate with your family, what you used to do, and also the music, because we all have like that Christmas song, right? Everybody has like that Christmas song that's like, this is the song we would play during Christmas, or it was this album, or maybe it was this movie that you used to watch. Connecting with other people through, sharing that and keeping the tradition alive can definitely be really supported with the Venus-Neptune trine. I feel like also spiritual connection is strong when you see this. Couples may feel a strong connection and an inclination to explore and share spiritual or metaphysical interests together. Enhanced intuition with water trines always happens. This can lead to a greater understanding of subtle emotional cues and a deeper connection on an intuitive level within relationships. Escapism and idealization can happen, so you want to watch for that, because the trine is positive, but it can be too good, right? Trines can be like a Jupiter energy, so it can bring about a potential challenge, and the influence of Neptune can sometimes lead to idealization and a desire to escape reality. It's important for individuals to maintain an imbalance between romantic ideas and practical aspects of relationships. So, at a 24, I can think of some people just being like overly idealizing, this person and not seeing all the red flags. And like some people going to dinner with certain couples just being like, this is a dumpster fire. And like everybody sees it but them, right? Right. Red flag stuff. I could also see this as a situation where some people are overly idealizing somebody and putting too much focus on the fact that they feel like they're not getting what they need from another person. And it could be leading to some very Venus-Neptune vibes where there could be a lot of sadness and despair and tears or crying, always happens with 24 degrees. Definitely having a little bit too much to drink and calling that person and telling them how you feel, and like a lot of like drunk phone calls happening over the holidays. That could definitely be happening, especially with Mercury square Neptune for sure. I also think about, people who have substance or alcohol abuse issues, because 24 degrees does deal with that. It can deal with, unfortunately, accidents, overdoses, drowning, and mixing things. And I would say, those of you guys who are not dealing well with the Venus-Uranus opposition, where you're feeling so removed from what you need in order to feel secure, the Venus-Neptune can definitely be about indulging in things a little bit too much. And I would say with Mercury and Mars in conjunction too, we're going to see a real uptick with mental health issues. We're going to see a real uptick with accidents, and people who are having accidents while driving because of substance issues, overdose related matters. Be very, very, very careful, obviously with any of this stuff, but especially with Venus trine Neptune, there can be a sense of releasing someone or something, because we realize that, they can be really deep in a habit or an addiction, and that it's like beyond being able to help them. We can see that with this trine as well. Emotional healing is probably the biggest theme, because the combination with Scorpio's depth and Neptune's energy does allow us to heal emotionally within relationships, and it encourages us to practice forgiveness, compassion, and letting go of old wounds. So I could definitely see like Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, not because of the holiday, because of the astrology, that you might see some people bury the hatchet and, come to Christmas and make amends and reach out and send gifts or cards or phone calls and connect with people who they haven't connected with in some time. So that's definitely very possible. I think in the spirit also of Mercury retrograde and Mercury conjunct Mars in its retrograde. So it's tapping into sharing your feelings and talking about things. I mean, like, I really do hope that there's a lot of families out there that after the bullshit that's happened the last couple of years can come together and be like, we can do Christmas, you don't have to wear a mask. Or, I'm sorry that I didn't talk to you for X amount of time because, I didn't believe you or I didn't understand, because there's been so much conflict and division that's happened in recent years over just what's been going on globally, whether it's politics or economic conflicts or issues revolving around, beliefs in health or, medication. Now is the time to really kind of bury the hatchet and basically be like, look, what happened. But it's not just about moving forward and forgiving and not discussing it. I think Mercury conjunct Mars means you literally have to go back to people and go, I was wrong, right? I didn't have all the facts. I was wrong. And it's about going that extra distance and, knowing that you need to kind of own up to what happened, but being able to have the compassion and the capability of being like, thank you, I appreciate that, because you can't really move forward. Venus in Scorpio holds grudges. So you can't really move forward until you've had that exchange and there's been an ability to kind of acknowledge where there's been wrong, but then you have the opportunity to heal, right? And then finally, we're going to see Venus come into a sextile with Pluto, and that'll be at 29 degrees. What? That's going to be on the 29th of December. 29. Okay. So Venus sextile Pluto, it is about sensuality and harmony, socializing. But this is interesting because, Scorpio is also connected to Pluto. So we've got something that's ending or changing or transforming about long-standing power structure or power issues, also going hand in hand with like this Mercury Mars stuff. So there's a lot of opportunity to be able to heal things and like let things go. But whenever Venus hits 29, we always feel like we're at this like critical kind of breaking point. And it does look like the moon, well, it probably won't. I don't think it's going to happen until... yeah, Venus will go into Sag. Okay, so then later on the 29th, Venus will go into Sagittarius. So that's basically the Venus in Scorpio transit. I did touch on this briefly during the horoscopes, but honestly, there was just so much going on that I could have, would have, should have done more on this. So I do want to take you guys through the 12 signs. I want to show you where Venus is going to be going very quickly, so you guys can see that. And then I'll just give you a little taste of, what to watch for while Venus is in the sign of Scorpio. And then, yeah, we'll go from there. All right, so as always, I'm a Western astrologer. I practice Western astrology. I use the whole sign method for my transit readings. You can use the whole sign transit method if you want right now, because Venus is going to go from 0 to 29 degrees. So cast your chart, look at where Scorpio is in your chart. That's where Venus is moving through. You can listen for your whole sign or your Placidus, whichever you prefer, and progressed is okay too. Definitely listen to your rising, your sun, and your moon sign. You can listen to all three of these. Remember that Venus is a benefic planet, so even if she's moving through a difficult house or a challenging sign, she's here to bring more love, more resources, more stability, more abundance, and she means well. So try to keep that in the back of your mind. Look at where Libra is in your chart, because that's what you're clearing out. You can also look at Taurus as well, because Venus rules both of these placements. I'm going to start first with my Aries and Aries rising. All right, guys, here's the deal. So you've got Venus that's going to be going into your 8th house. When you have this transit, there is a heightened sense of sensuality and intimacy in romantic relationships, because the 8th house is all about that. Deeper exploration of shared resources and financial matters. That means you have more access to other people's money, because Venus rules your 2nd house of personal possessions and your 7th house of relationships. So making money with someone else, receiving things from someone else, inheritances, mergers, investments, all of those things take place. But the second house is about the money that you spend. The eighth house is about the money that you owe. So there can be a sense of you having to give to other people because Venus rules your seventh. Watch for interesting exchanges. When Venus starts opposing planets in your second house, there can be a lot of somebody gave me this, but I don't like it, I'm taking it back. Or so-and-so spent this much money on our joint credit card statement. Like, how much of this do I have to pay? Fluctuations and changes with insurance, as well as just joint resources in general, insurance and insurance matters. Okay. Good luck, my Aries. We got Taurus and Taurus rising. Obviously, this is an intense one for you, Taurus, because Venus rules your sign. So when Venus changes signs, wherever Venus goes is where you go. Well, here's where things are a little bittersweet, because Venus does really, really well in the seventh house, where it's bringing you the sweetness of relationships. So if you're single, somebody might kind of come into your life. If you're in a relationship, there can be more sweetness in an existing partnership. Venus really wants to go deeper, right, in Scorpio. So when Venus goes to your seventh house, there's a deepening of partnership, both romantic and business related. Increased focus on emotional aspects of committed relationships. So this is about you trying to maybe transform relationships in some way. You will see also that it's about airing out the grievances, because Venus rules your sixth house, where the South Node is. So it looks like maybe you're trying to move out of what's been through some difficult relationship periods, healing things, trying to be helpful for a partner. And you'll see some oppositions to Jupiter and Uranus. And so it seems like there can be some really strong opinions about what you and another person both value. Now, if you're single, this can be a really interesting time, because it can be like magnetic and somebody comes into your life very quickly and you're just very much in tune to one another. But this person wants to go deep, and there's definitely going to be more topics about intimacy while Mercury goes retrograde in your eighth house. Good luck. We have Gemini and Gemini rising. You will be experiencing Venus ingress into Scorpio in your natal sixth house. Now for you, Gemini, this is all about intense connections with coworkers or a focus on working on relationships. You might take your health more seriously during this transit. You might realize that your physical health has an impact on your mental health, or vice versa. And your health routines might be a source of emotional satisfaction. So you might kind of become aware of what needs to change with your routines or your habits to have better health. Now, something that's really interesting about this transit is that the South Node is connecting to Venus, and you have the South Node in your fifth. So to me, it looks like you're trying to kind of maybe clear out things that aren't working in relationships, that you're not loving. There can be a sense of adding more beauty or kind of sprucing up your workplace. That can happen here as well. And you're going to have a Mercury retrograde through your seventh house. So there's definitely some relationship stuff that is under construction. But this means that you have the opportunity to kind of clear some of that stuff out now. And I think you'll address it during the Mercury retrograde. Great for detoxing, purging, cleansing, anything that you kind of need to kind of get out of your system. And you recognize that love or health requires like a little bit of work in this transit. Good luck. We have Cancer and Cancer rising. You'll be experiencing Venus move through Scorpio in your natal fifth house. Well, for you, Cancer, this is a great transit because Venus is moving through a sister sign, so you'll experience a trine. Actually, in particular, you'll really enjoy this because you're going to have some water trines between Pisces and Scorpio. Now, Venus is moving through the fifth house, which is all about passion and intense romantic connections, a desire for creative expression with emotional depth. More love for date night, more love for children, for hobbies and creativity. It is possible because Venus's connection to your 11th house, some of your romantic goals are being met. Maybe you're meeting people through friends or socializing. And also it seems like you're finally kind of breaking with the past or clearing relationship past or clearing up any disharmony that you've been having with home or family. And when Venus is coming into trines with the ninth house, it's like your faith is changing in some way in regards to creativity or self-expression. You'll also see that this happening with a Mercury retrograde might be about meeting somebody new or some development in a romantic relationship that you're kind of feeling out really through the next month. Good luck. For my Leo and Leo rising, you'll be experiencing Venus entering into Scorpio in your natal 4th house. This is interesting because it deals with your home, so there can be lots of intense emotions with the family and home environment, desire for deep emotional connection with family members, or some sense of change or transformation either with your home aesthetic or with a woman in the family. Now, Venus has to deal with your 3rd house of neighbors, communication, and siblings. Maybe there's a change going on with a relative. Maybe there's somebody who is coming to visit. There can also be lots of changes in the way that you communicate with relatives or with a partner. Now, as Venus comes into this particular sign, it is squaring and opposing things. So the fixed signs are definitely feeling this very intensely this month. Venus in the 4th house can bring opportunity for lots of love in the family and change in your decor, but you might notice that like it's a little bit darker or moodier that you're kind of opting for. Watch when Venus starts opposing planets in your 10th house later in the month, because it can definitely have you feeling like you're being pulled in 2 different directions between your professional life and your home life. Good luck. We have Virgo and Virgo rising. You will be experiencing Venus's move into Scorpio in your natal 3rd house. For you, this is all going to be about a deep communication and intense conversation taking place in relationships. Whether this is romantic relationships or with somebody in your community, maybe an intense exchange with a sibling or a neighbor. You will be also noticing that siblings or close friends play a significant role in romantic matters, whether that's talking to them or going on a trip with them and meeting somebody. Maybe you're just sharing more about your feelings with them. And Venus has the connection to the South Node, so I think that there is a lot of talking about what changes have happened recently for you financially, or the fact that you're going through a change in a relationship. Maybe you're talking to a sibling or a relative about that. What I like about this is that Venus is sextiling Mercury, which rules your chart. So there is like an openness to communicating and talking about changes in relationships. And it's also trining Saturn in your 7th. So it looks like you'll get some really excellent feedback, or maybe you'll meet somebody while you're doing some traveling or spending time with relatives. Good luck. For Libra and Libra rising, you will be experiencing Venus moving into Scorpio in your natal 2nd house. For you, Libra, you feel this very strongly because Venus rules your chart. So wherever Venus goes is where you go. And Venus moving into the 2nd house is about luxury. It is about receiving something. It is about feeling good, feeling a definite change in regards to money and resources. For you also, you know, the connection to the 8th house. So it almost seems like you're getting what you desire through the support of another person. Lavish gifts, you know, joint resources, investments paying off, generous partners. There is a sense of you feeling very good about some of your purchases or your spending power. Venus is really happy in the 2nd house. It will also be trining Saturn, so it's not like you're just being given something. What you have is something you worked really hard for. It does mean also you might have a little bit more of a sweet tooth, and financial dealings become more intense, and there is much more of a focus on shared resources and a desire for financial stability and depth in material values. Watch when you have Venus that is making some oppositions to your 8th house. There can be a back and forth that you're having with another person about something that is owed to you. So there can be like conversations about returns or insurance matters that can come up throughout this transit. Good luck. For my Scorpios and Scorpio risings, you have Venus going through your sign. So you may be actually faring the best of all of the 12 signs. You have to let me know. If you're a Scorpio rising, Venus on the ascendant is wonderful. It makes you very social, very alluring, very attractive, kind of feisty, and definitely very flirty because Venus rules the 7th house of other people. So this is about luring other people in, bringing them in, and kind of hypnotizing them in a way. Venus is also connected to the 12th house. So there can be some fantasy stuff going on, some feeling like you're attracting people that might be a little too intense. You might be bringing people in subconsciously and you're unaware of that. But Venus on the ascendant is great for your appearance. It's also really great for personal magnetism and intensity in relationships. You'll notice an enhanced sense of physical attractiveness and a desire for deep connection with other people. Now, if you're in a relationship when Venus opposes Jupiter and Uranus, that might be a time where you really notice that you have more sway in a relationship and that there is like a sense of you being a little bit more daring or intense, which can bring up a reaction in other people, especially when it comes to money or physical goods and changes within the home front. But for the most part, I think the trine to Saturn and Venus on the ascendant is really getting in touch with feeling confident in loving yourself and letting that be something that shines outward, and that just naturally brings other people in, right? Just watch the Venus-Uranus aspect because that can bring a little bit of back and forth in a relationship, but sometimes, absence can make the heart grow fonder. Good luck. For Sag and Sag rising, you're going to have Venus going into Scorpio in your natal 12th house. This is where Venus has like a little bit of a turn. So there can be definitely a sense of like craving more private time and intimate time for yourself where you can rest and experience like a sense of renewal. Venus is connected to your 6th house of health, wellness, and routine. And it also has connections to your 11th house of friendships. Now, while Venus is in your 12th house, this is about introspection, emotional depth, and private, a desire for deep spiritual or emotional connection with yourself. When Venus opposes Jupiter, there may be this feeling like you need time away from the daily grind or from work or your routine. And it's important to like rest, recuperate, or maybe even travel while you're experiencing that opposition and just having a break with your daily routine. And while it opposes Uranus, it might also be a time where you're feeling like you're not wanting to be in the workspace, or you're just wanting to have more time by yourself, breaking with patterns in your daily routine. Good luck. All right, so for Capricorn and Capricorn rising, you will be experiencing Venus going into Scorpio. This will be in your natal 11th house. This is fun. This is where there can be more opportunities for socializing and connecting with other people. I do think that it's about intense connections that you have with friends and others. And it can bring about also a desire for deep transformational experiences within a community. Female friends might be a huge topic here. Venus has connections to your career house. And it also has connections to your 5th house of creativity and self-expression and fun. So there is a sense of wanting to share maybe with what you're creating with other people. Professional networking and connecting with people who are very powerful can be a theme here as well. Now, what I like about this is that Venus will trine Saturn. So you and also, Aquarius do very well with this trine. It's all about who you know and who you're connecting with and communicating with. When I think about, this transit, it makes me feel like, especially throughout the beginning process before Mercury goes retrograde, that you're rethinking what some of your goals are, and you're trying to think about who you can kind of connect with, who's going to better kind of help you develop your status in the world, or things in regards to your professional life. There may be a sense of you really recognizing that there are certain friends that you can really rely on that've got your back when you're going through some kind of change or transformation, which you're going to be experiencing with Mercury retrograde. I think this is also about like lavish events. Like you can be finding yourself around friends or, networks and stuff where people can be definitely a little bit more well off, and also people who can really help you transform the way that you look at your professional goals moving forward. Good luck. We have Aquarius and Aquarius rising. You will be experiencing Venus going through the sign of Scorpio in your natal 10th house of your professional, dreams and also your public recognition. This is all about emotional intensity revolving around career and your public life, and a desire for deep and meaningful connections in professional settings. Now, Venus deals with your private life, your home, your family. It also has connections to your belief in your philosophy. So this can be a lot about feeling like you have a sense of responsibility for, your family members, for helping support and taking care of people, especially people that might be at a distance. This can be a wonderful time for really working on your public persona, having meetings, connecting with people, and like really feeling like you're putting your best foot forward when it comes to, your work and your career life. Important or powerful people that you've worked with in the past may come back around in some capacity to help you in some way. And this is also a really wonderful time to be focusing on your aesthetic when it comes to like your business. So if you own a business, or maybe this is about like sweetening up bosses, bringing in gifts for superiors and other people, because it's really opening the door to making it possible for you to have more support from them in the future, because Venus is trining Saturn, right? So it's like you might finally start to get some of the recognition or the rewards that you've been working towards with all of the hard work that you've been kind of putting forth in your professional stuff. So good luck with that. And we have Pisces and Pisces rising. We are taking a look at Venus going into the sign of Scorpio, so it'll be moving through a fellow sister sign. So while Venus goes through your 9th house, she's tapping into an intense desire for exploration and adventure in relationships. Emotional depth in spiritual or philosophical pursuits are likely to come about. Now, Venus has connections to your 8th house of joint resources and intimacy, as well as your 3rd house of communication. So I feel like there can be opportunities to travel and meet somebody and have love at a distance, to go on a romantic getaway with a partner. It's also possible to spend a little bit more time or energy focusing on like something you're passionate about learning or reading. And Venus is going to trine Saturn in your sign. So it is possible that you're feeling a little bit more optimistic and inspired when it comes to going after what you want. I also feel like this is going to be about really opening yourself up to having conversations and being more vulnerable because of Venus's connection to your 3rd house. Now, what you're going to want to watch out for is when Venus starts coming into an opposition with Jupiter, because that can bring a relationship or an attraction at a distance. And also when Venus trines Neptune. These are two of the better kind of times for you when I think you're likely going to find that someone or something at a distance is kind of like luring you in. But if you're in a partnership or a relationship, relationship with teachers, mentors, gurus can be positive at this time as well. And you may find that you're feeling really inspired to write, share, or learn something new. Okay. So hopefully that's helpful for you guys, giving you some insight into Venus's transit through the sign of Scorpio. Let me know, leave me your comments below. I'd love to hear from you guys and hear how you're feeling about this sexy transit. Like I said, I call it the Scorpion's kiss because it stings a little bit, but I think you guys are really you guys are gonna like it. And you can come back to this video throughout the transit. If I touched on some things that end up playing out in the world, I always get a great joy in chuckling and reading those comments. If you guys like my content and you want to see more of it, please make sure you're subscribed. Consider joining my memberships and supporting me being a full-time content creator on YouTube. You can book a reading with me or see all of my various courses and my astrological calendars and content by heading over to my website at beyondtheveiltarot.com. I am taking bookings in February now and March of 2024. And I've got some cool stuff coming up in the new year for you guys. So if you guys want, while you're on my website, check out the tickets that I have for the New Year's Day 2024. I'm doing a private live screening. Head over to my website and you can check that out and you can see what we're doing for New Year's Day. We're going to be doing a live show where we're going to talk all about the astrology of 2024. I hope you guys join me, and I will see you all back here tomorrow where we're going to be doing some live tarot readings. So check out the link in the community tab if you guys would like to get in the queue, reserve a reading with me, and hang out with me on Friday night while we read some tarot. All right, with that being said, enjoy the rest of your week. I will see all of you guys very soon. Take care.